I didn't originally plan on making a video of this game. I thought it would be a quick 20-minute demo with not a whole lot to talk about. But it kept going, and adding new maps, and adding new guns, and adding new enemies, and before I knew it, I had a project I just had to talk about. This is Half-Life: Another Story. Hey, Jarek here. I've said it before and I will say it again. I love Half-Life and Half-Life style games, and just games of that era. So if you give me an excuse to talk about a Half-Life style game, I will. And here is a Half-Life game. Would you believe me if I told you this game is not running on the gold source engine? Well, yes, you probably would, those guns are a dead giveaway, but would you believe me if I told you this is a complete overhaul mod for Doom 2? Well, yes, you probably would. People do insane things with Doom, but that's beside the point. This is clearly a project of love. There is so much detail in this game. All of this is incredibly tedious to make. Seriously, if it wasn't for the gun and enemy sprites, this just looks like a regular 3D game. Okay, what is the story in Half-Life: Another Story? What's the context? Why are you back in Black Mesa? Well, you're just another Marine stuck in this situation trying to escape. There's not really an in-depth story, although the main character does like to talk quite a bit.
This sucks!
This kind of caught me off guard because I'm not used to a main character talking in a Half-Life game. Granted, Half-Life Alyx does exist. And if you're worried about characters talking too much, you don't need to worry. This isn't like a Sony exclusive style problem where a puzzle pops up and they immediately start telling you the solution to the puzzle.
What about freezing the geyser under the wheel? Maybe? Hey, looks like you stopped the water flow in that trough. There's a brazier to the left of the chest. Maybe you can light it?
Actually, now that I think back about it, he only talks a lot right at the beginning of the game, and then after that doesn't talk much at all. And anytime he does say something, it's mostly in reaction to something happening around him.
Shit! Assholes!
And speaking of things around him, this game is so trippy to play. There are so many different maps that you are going to recognize from Half-Life, Blue Shift, and Opposing Force. Except for there's always like a few things changed, and it doesn't lead into what would usually be the next map or the next room. It's almost like you're playing a randomizer. You recognize these things, but they're different, and it feels so strange. Like, this room is a bit smaller, there's no skylight in here, the general gameplay is slightly different than the original, but you recognize what this room is supposed to be. What's even stranger is the mix of some assets. Some doors sound like the Half-Life 2 Ravenholm creaky door sound effect. Other doors and other things in the game have totally out-of-place Doom 3 assets. For the most part, they're used favorably, but when they stand out, they really stand out. Sometimes I didn't mind them standing out, like this being in this room makes sense. Other times, they're just here. This does not fit in at all. And I do want to make it clear that this person is not just recreating Half-Life in the Doom engine. This is a totally new experience. This goes down to the enemies as well. Some of them have the same sound effects, some of them are different. The zombies especially stand out because they're so loud. But in function, the zombies do what you would expect them to do. They walk at you and they try to hit you. The head grabs are exactly the same. They walk at you and they try to jump on you. So fundamentally, the gameplay is Half-Life in this regard. Some enemies have been changed, however. For example, the Vortigaunts no longer do a hit scan style lightning bolt launched at you. It's just a green projectile. While this is not as impressive to look at, it's actually kind of nicer to play around. Now, I love Vortigaunts in Half-Life 1. In fact, I was really disappointed when Vortigaunts were on your side in Half-Life 2 because I thought fighting them was really fun. But it does kind of boil down to either getting a headshot on them immediately or breaking line of sight so they don't shock you. In this game, it's a little nicer that you can dodge their projectiles, and if you're up close, they do throw them fast enough to where it's pretty difficult to dodge. The Bull Squids have the same style projectile, but it matches the Bull Squid's original projectile more than the Vortigaunts. But again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, where you recognize all of this stuff around you, but it's been tweaked slightly so it just feels so bizarre. You have expectations that you think should be met, and then something else happens. And you don't hate the experience, but readjusting is just so amusing. These enemies can do a good amount of damage to you, but for the most part, they're not really a giant threat. That is until the grunts show up. These guys can mess you up.
My goodness.
Their projectiles do a lot of damage and they cause you to flinch, so you have to be very careful. As of right now, there's a pretty good enemy roster. You have head crabs, zombies, bull squids, vortigaunts, grunts, and even those god dang annoying floating baby things that I hate. But this also allowed this modder to have really good pacing. This mod is not just shove everything at the player and see if it works out. It's not constant combat that looks like Half-Life. No, it has Half-Life pacing. I found myself wanting to explore the environment, to take my time, not to rush through and just shoot everything I saw. This is encouraged because they also added secrets. Although they're not really in depth, you're not going to be going through 5-stage processes to find one secret. It's normally just a branching path to walk by. In fact, Half-Life is so varied with its locations and enemies, there's quite a lot you can do with them. The game even made me jump once when a bull squid showed up out of nowhere. This was the first bull squid I saw. This was the introduction to that enemy in this mod. It's simple, but very well done. And occasionally, this mod is really good at using lighting, audio, and music to set a tense atmosphere. And eventually you'll even find yourself going to Zen. Now there's not really much you do here. You usually just teleport in, look around, and then teleport out. But still, it's there. Entirely new assets made for Zen are in this mod. Now let's talk about weapons, because this mod does them a little differently. Half-Life 1 had a lot of weapons to choose from, and they brought quite a few back, plus some new ones. The first weapon you get is the knife, and this thing is kind of overpowered. The split function is a heavy stab. This will one-shot most enemies in the game. It also seems to stay active longer than it should. Instead of just being one swinging hitbox, it seems to be active as you're holding the knife out. So yeah, they definitely need to nerf this, or maybe it's a bug and they need to fix it. Next up is the Glock. Got some tactical reloads going on here, but for the most part it functions like the original Half-Life Glock. That is, except you can aim down sights. And to be honest, this doesn't do anything for you. You really don't have any reason to do this. It doesn't make it more accurate, it just takes up more of your screen, so just hip fire. That's probably for the best. Next up is the Desert Eagle and the revolver, and I'm going to be honest, these are pretty useless. They do literally the same damage as the starting Glock. They're supposed to be more powerful, but they're not. I imagine this is not intended. You really don't have any reason to use these. That's really unfortunate, because if you think of a revolver in a game, many people will immediately think of the Half-Life revolver. It is one of the magnums of gaming. Next up are the automatics. The first one you get is an AK, which you'd never see in a Half-Life game. That's fine, I'm totally okay with there being some new weapons, but I do think it is a little bit strange. Especially since this also does very low damage and has a pretty high rate of fire. Doesn't really fit what I would think of when I think of an AK. Which is made even more confusing by the fact that you eventually get an M4, which you think would serve the same function, and they do, but the M4 has a slower fire rate than the AK, which again doesn't make sense. Thankfully, they don't share ammo, so it's more like just having a backup assault rifle to your assault rifle when you have to reload. And then on top of that, you get a saw, which at least gives you the advantage of having 100 rounds in your mag, but still for the most part serves the same function. My main confusion is I don't know why they chose an AK here, because with its high rate of fire, it actually serves the function more as an SMG than a true assault rifle. I'm talking in-game functionality here, I'm not talking real life. No need to correct me about the AK not being an SMG, I know. You do get grenades, which function as grenades. I don't really have anything more to say about that. And you do find the bolt action that you also get in opposing force at the end of this game, but it's not complete yet, so this is in kind of an empty map. You never really get a chance to use it. But last and certainly not least is the shotgun. This thing is awesome. While everything else is pretty low damage, this shotgun can absolutely destroy everything. It doesn't have the double shot split function that the original SPAs and Half-Life has, but it frankly does not need it. Yeah, this was my go-to. If you ever get into a tough situation or you just want to have fun with a gun, it's the shotgun. Especially since this is using the HD model audio, and while I don't generally like Half-Life's HD models, I do like the shotguns and that sound effect. It's just so crunchy and satisfying. Basically, imagine using the Doom shotgun in Half-Life. It sounds kind of busted, but this isn't really Half-Life, it's Doom playing like Half-Life. This is weird. Now, as I mentioned, this project is not complete. It took me a little over an hour to beat what is effectively a long demo. However, what is there was so impressive that I just had to make this video. And since this is a Doom 2 mod, it's 100% free. All you need is GZ Doom. You download 2 files and launch it in GZ Doom and you're good to go. The most interesting thing to me about this game is that it just feels like Half-Life in an alternate universe. And there's definitely something to be said about the game that kind of killed off Doom-style shooters for almost 15 years, having a mod being made in Doom 2, while at the same time not feeling like Doom at all. There's a hint of playing a GZ Doom game, there's definitely a distinct feel about GZ Doom, but it doesn't feel like Doom at all. It definitely feels more Half-Life than Doom. This does lead to some interesting quirks, like for example when you jump and land it makes that Half-Life 1 jibbing noise. Yes, it's jibbing, not gibbing. The full word is giblets. I associate this sound with taking damage or getting crushed by a door. So it's practically impossible to train that sound being negative out of my head, unless I'm holding a crowbar. As you can tell, I had a lot of fun. I didn't stream this mod because I didn't even intend on making a video of it, so I would highly encourage you to play this for yourself. It's 100% worth it, and again, it's free. You have no reason not to. So hey, that about sums it up. I will be streaming again soon-ish. You can go ahead and click the bottom right if you want to go follow me over on my Twitch. And to the rest of you, thank you for watching this video.